Join me as I dive deep into the darkness to see if I can really hear what God is trying to tell us. Finding God's voice in times of darkness is one of the most powerful and intimate experiences we can have in our faith journey. It's in those moments that we're forced to confront our deepest fears, our greatest doubts, and our most profound questions about the nature of God and His role in our lives. I think we've all been there, in those dark places where it feels like God is nowhere to be found, where the silence is deafening, and the feelings of isolation and despair can be overwhelming. It's as if the darkness has become a palpable, living thing that surrounds us, choking the breath out of us, and making it impossible to see any glimmer of hope. You may feel like you're walking through a never-ending tunnel with no lights, no guidance, and no reassurance that you'll ever find your way out. It's in those moments that we start to question everything: our faith, our purpose, our very identity. We wonder if God has abandoned us, if He's still listening, or if He even cares. The darkness can be so suffocating that it's hard to remember the last time we felt His presence, heard His voice, or sensed His guidance. But here's the thing: it's in those very moments that God is often speaking to us in ways we never thought possible. He's not ignoring us, He's not abandoning us, He's actually drawing us closer to Himself, even when we can't see or feel Him. I remember when I was going through a particularly tough time in my life, and I felt like I was completely alone. I was struggling to hear God's voice, to sense His presence, or to understand His plans for my life. But one day, I stumbled upon a story about someone who had gone through a similar experience, and how they had encountered God's guidance and comfort in the most unexpected way. That story changed everything for me. It gave me hope, it gave me courage, and it reminded me that I was not alone. I've heard countless stories of people who have encountered God's voice in the most profound ways during their darkest hours. They've shared stories of supernatural encounters, of unexplained events, of prophetic dreams, and of unmistakable signs that God was with them, even when they couldn't see or feel Him. These stories have taught me that God is always speaking, always guiding, and always comforting, even when we can't perceive Him. One of the most powerful stories I've heard is about a woman who was going through a devastating illness. She was in and out of hospitals, undergoing treatment after treatment, but with little to no improvement. She was at the point where she was ready to give up, to surrender to the darkness, and to accept that this was going to be her new normal. But then, one day, she had a dream that changed everything. In the dream, she saw herself standing in a beautiful garden, surrounded by vibrant flowers, sparkling fountains, and radiant light. And in that dream, she heard God's voice, clear as day, telling her that she was not alone, that He was with her, and that she would get through this. That dream gave her the courage to keep going, to keep fighting, and to keep trusting that God would see her through. I think what I love most about that story is that it reveals the transformative power of faith. It shows us that even in the darkest of times, God is always working, always speaking, and always guiding us towards His purpose for our lives. And when we surrender to that, when we trust in His goodness, and when we listen for His voice, we can experience breakthroughs, miracles, and transformations that we never thought possible. So what have we learned today? We've learned that God is always speaking, even in the darkness. We've learned that He's always guiding us, always comforting us, and always drawing us closer to Himself. And we've learned that when we listen for His voice, when we trust in His goodness, and when we surrender to His plans, we can experience the most profound and life-changing encounters with Him. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the darkness to discover the hidden treasures of God's voice. If you have a story of how God spoke to you in the darkness, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. And if you want to dive deeper into the topic of faith and resilience, be sure to check out my next video.